Alright, so working on the 4Runner. The ARB bumper installation is coming along. So this is what I've got right now. We're doing, I'm laying this out. So I had templates that ARB supplied, and we cut them out, taped them to the bumper, and marked the lines. So I'm going to be removing the bumper cover shortly, and then I'm going to get to work with a body saw that I bought. Hopefully this thing here is the ticket, and help has arrived. I've got family coming to visit, so here they are. My dad's here.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And the front end is off of the 4Runner now. So brought the front clip in, traced the lines out, removed it. It was pretty straightforward. Had to pry it off the side here where it connects to the body, and removed everything. I think the next step is going to be, see, I've got to remove these plastic pieces and remove the bumper, and there's going to be some trimming that needs done on these, and remove these bolts here. And the instructions, it showed that there's some somewhere up in here there's a hole that needs to be drilled, so I'm going to have to look for that. I think it's up behind this, probably up here in the wheel well somewhere. So we'll have to figure that out. And so this is what it looks like with the front end tore off. I do have KDSS, so that is why there's going to have to be a hole drilled according to the instructions. So the next step is going to be drop the bumper and drop those plastic shrouds, and see what happens from there. Alright, I've got some pieces to trim here. I'm going to trim the grill cover here. Here we go. Alright. Fog lights trimmed, grill trimmed. Next comes the really tricky, really scary part. Let's see if we can. All right, got the front end trimmed now and reinstalled. So next thing is going to be to trim these pieces, I believe. That should do it for the front end trimming anyway. It's the next morning, and back to working on the 4Runner. First thing we've got to do is let's see here. Down here on the frame, behind this power steering line, there's a hole that needs drilled out. So we're going to drill that to, it calls in the instructions for a 13 millimeter. Closest thing I've got is a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to use a 1/2 inch, and hope that's big enough. If I have to make some adjustments, I've got a grinder I can use to open it up a little bit. And then, well, I can't see on this side right now, but let's see here. Yeah, on this side, I've got to open up that hole to a 3/4. I'm going to use a step bit for that. And there's a few other things we got to do here. Drill this hole out. And I got to get everything ready for the mounting brackets that are going to go here on the frame. All right. So that right there is drilled out. Need to clean that off a little bit. Should accept the plate now. Alright, so learning things through this process. Here's something to keep in mind if you're going to do one of these bumpers. So on this one, right back here, you can see where I did the grinding up in there. So there's these two plates, the recovery point and the bumper mount plate. They anchor there, and the top part of the plate was coming across this tube that's welded into the bumper, into the frame. And so I had to get a grinder out and knock some weld slag off and knock the bottom of that tube off. I'm going to touch it up and weld it, or touch it up and spray paint it, and then put the plate on. Now the plate will fit. The bolt holes will line up. And then there's this spot here is another place where there was some weld bead that was interfering. So I ground it down and touch all this up with spray paint, and it should be good. But a lot of little fitting things that you have to do with this bumper, and and that's one of them that we've been messing with. So we'll knock this side out, and then I've got to drill some more holes in the frame on the other side and test fit some stuff, and probably do some more grinding on welds. And I'll update when I get this plate on, show the next scene here. Alright, working on the driver's side, and I'll show you what we did here. So that big hole right there, that had to be drilled out to 3/4 in order to fit a crush tube through. And then the shiny part of the frame right there, I had to grind on that to give some room for the plate to fit flat against the frame rail. So this should be prepped and ready to go now. We're going to try to fit, so I drilled this hole out too. We're going to be fitting the plates on. I'm going to spray paint that with some Rust-Oleum and put the frame plates on and the recovery point on the passenger side there. And then we'll be ready to put these crush brackets on. So that's the next step after this. And these are what gives it its impact absorbing qualities for crash safety standards, I guess. So that's the next step. Try to get. There was a lot of grinder running involved here because there's a lot of weld beads and different crap that's stuck on the frame. So anyway, next step. So we've made a lot of progress. This job has taken a lot of time. It's a lot of back and forth. None of the holes really line up the way they're supposed to. So my grinder's been getting a workout. Here's what we've got the recovery point. It's mounted, torqued in place, finally. And the other side, the main mounting bracket is also mounted and torqued in place. This is the impact absorber. So you can see it's got waves built into it, so it'll collapse with enough impact force to absorb energy like the bumper would. So now I'm mounting this. I'm going to mount the other side, and we will be ready to put the bumper in place, I think, after that. So it's looking like just put these on, leave some slop in the bolts, and then bring the bumper up and slide it into place. And we'll have to go through the fog light holes and put these bolts in and get them started. And then it's going to be a matter of just sort of leveling things out, putting the trim in, making sure everything lines up right, and then torquing everything in place. So we should have the bumper going on pretty soon. So if you get into this job with an ARB bumper, the instructions are a little wonky. You've got to do some backtracking, and there's a few things that don't work out quite the way they say it's going to on a 4Runner. So if you're going to do this bumper, be ready to spend some time on it and do some custom fitting. A lot of the parts went on and off several times. Test fit. Tomorrow morning we're going to wire in the parking light wires, tap into those. We should be able at that point to pull it in bring the bumper up and slide it on, get the bolt started, and start leveling it out. We leave everything loose until the final step, which is leveling the bumper, making sure all the gaps are correct and it fits nice, and then we'll go through and torque everything. So we'll do an update tomorrow.
Before you shut it off, make sure that you pay particular attention to the word wonky. Hardly ever hear that.
Yesterday we finished up putting these impact absorber brackets on. Had to go source a bolt for this power steering line bracket. So we got the power steering lines mounted on there. We got the impact absorbers on. We got Dad put the trim pieces on the front clip here. Got the grill cut back in. So one thing you had to do with this kit is we had to pull the headlight buckets out with the front end off. We had to get back up in there to the parking light, and there's this is the wiring harness for the corner markers in the bumper. There'll be amber marking lights and turn signals built in. So we had to use splice connectors to get into that and rig up these this harness. So these will plug in. This is the remainder of the harness for my Xenon Depot amber fog lights. So that's going to get hooked up. We still have to trim the inner fender liners. But everything else went together pretty good. Right now, I am going to use this plate to mount my Smitty built winch solenoid. I've worked up a little mounting situation here, so I'm drilling some holes, and hopefully that will mount up nice. I can wire the winch, and then we'll get this thing up and fit it on the truck. So this thing goes on like this. You raise it up, slide it in here, and you have these 3 slotted holes on the impact absorber. And then on the inside of the bumper here, in here there's a hole right there, and down at the bottom corner there's another hole, and those are the pinning holes. So once this thing is in place and all the mounting bolts are torqued down, and then they're going to drill those 2 holes out through this plate and pin them with the bolts they supplied, and that's going to anchor it in place. Anyway, that is that's the current state of things right now. So it's been a lot of work, but got the bumper on. I think it looks pretty good. I had a jack under it for a while. We jacked it around. We pulled on things. We did measurements. We got it to where the gaps were within a 1/16 of an inch from one side to the other and level from front to back. All the body gaps look good across. Should be no rubbing. The winch solenoid clears. The winch is functional. The parking lights are hooked up. Pretty happy with things. It's been a big job. And I've probably said that 100 times because it is a big job. But I'm proud of it. Happy with how it turned out. I think this thing looks it looks really stout. It's really cool. I'm excited about this. I can't wait to get on the road with this thing. It will be fun. So anyway, we're gonna work some more on it. Get these fog lights in. Get everything wired up, and that's that. Everything's done except for the underside wings, which we'll do tomorrow. I've got everything bolted up. Hey, you turn the lights on? Yeah. Everything's working. Fog lights, parking lights, it's all looking good. No, that's all right. Everything came together, so we're about to do a test drive and just make sure that everything stays cool and no vibrations or anything. I'm going to get my springs to kind of settle in a little bit and see how much I've lost. It looks like right now I've only lost about 1/2 inch. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to do a little drive and then get some more video and pictures tomorrow in the light. So here's what I've run into. I was able to get the driver's side wing on and finally got the stone guard on once I realized that the factory trail skid plate had to come off, because look here, factory trail skid plate has this vertical lip and these two hooks. So you got to get these hooked in to the radiator support, and then you raise it up, and it's got vertical bolts that go through here on each side and there. And anyway, the way this stone guard is made, as you can see there, it needs to be bolted on vertically. So there's no room for that lip. So I'm going to have to get a cutoff wheel or use my body saw or something and cut the lip off of this skid plate to get it back on. But everything else is going pretty good. All right, anyway, so I got this Harbor Freight body saw. This thing is super handy. I've used it to do my plastic trimming and several other jobs. So we cut this chunk out of the wing on this side, and that should go up and mate with the recovery point. And then I need to trim the fender liner. Okay, that finishes everything up but fitting the skid plate. So here's what I ended up with. Recovery point. There we go. Recovery point looks pretty good. It's got clearance. Everything's bolted in place. Everything's tight. The stone guard's in. And the next thing I need to do is trim off the front of my skid plate, bolt it back on, and so almost there. Alrighty, woohoo! Alright, see if this thing fits now. Yes! Huh. Success. Job is done. Holy smokes. Well, what a job this thing's been. But it is completely done now. Check this out. So, I saw in the video, I trimmed the front edge of the factory skid plate off, and there we go, and it fits nicely. Yeah, everything's cool. So I've got a recovery point now, my skid plate back on, I've got a Smitty built 10,000 pound winch, got my new lights, got everything set. So if you want to do an ARB bumper, there's some things to remember. It's probably like none of the brackets are really going to fit right off the bat. You're going to have to drill some holes, grind some holes. Some things are going to need to be oblonged. If you use a recovery point, that's going to have to be modified. I've had to modify almost every single thing about this bumper and the brackets to make it work. But once we got the main brackets on and the impact absorbers, everything went pretty good. We used a jack and some blocks. I didn't get a lot of this on video, unfortunately, because it was just me and my dad working. And it was taking a long time the way it was. I didn't want to have to keep stopping us and setting up cameras and doing different angles and stuff. So I try to hit all the important spots. And that's that. Merry Christmas, everybody.